Welcome back. You're watching AM Agenda. I want to talk about this anti-Semitic report that was handed down yesterday. It was about 9 months in, last week I should say, it was around 9 months in the making. Some of it has already been implemented. The government says it will work to implement what is outstanding. Joining me live now is the Shadow Attorney-General Julian Leeser. Julian, thanks so much for your time. I know you spoke to some of my colleagues about this last week, but I think it's really important now that the dust has settled a bit, because there's a lot of talk around what the definition of anti-Semitism is. What do you read as the definition in this report, and what is the threshold for perhaps being deported if you do express anti-Semitic views?
Well, Laura, thanks for having me on. This is a very important report from the Special Envoy on Anti-Semitism, Jillian Segal. It's been a lot of work that she's put into this report, and one of the most disturbing things in her report is the way in which people under 35 fail to recognise anti-Semitism and fail to see the need to deal with it appropriately. And this means that anti-Semitism is so much more than just dealing with security issues around communal buildings. Jillian Segal in her report has pushed for the adoption of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition. This is a definition that Australia signed up to under the previous coalition government. It has the bipartisan support of the Labor government, and I co-chair a parliamentary friendship group with Josh Burns and Allegra Spender to encourage people to adopt this definition. And we wrote to all the universities before October 7, and 5 of the 39 universities signed up as a result of our advocacy.
Well, what is that definition?
What this definition is about is what it is about is both understanding the old hatreds of anti-Semitism, old tropes about Jews being controlling of banks and Jews engaged in nefarious activity in concert with each other, which is of the sort of anti-Semitism that we saw in the Middle Ages and sadly we're seeing again today. But also the modern manifestations of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism which seeks to delegitimise Israel as some sort of racist enterprise, that seeks to apply to Israel different standards to those which you'd apply to other democracies, and which seeks to deny the right of Israel to exist. None of this opposes the legitimate criticism of the government of Israel or the Israel Defence Force, and there are many Israelis who would criticise Israel and its institutions. But where that criticism crosses the line and questions the right of Israel to exist, that is where it becomes anti-Semitic, or where it holds Australian Jews responsible for the actions of the government of Israel. Those are the modern manifestations of anti-Semitism.
I agree with that. Yeah, that is absolutely fair enough. I think the grey area here is we've seen that chant, "Death to the IDF," at Glastonbury. Now, that is clearly unsavoury, for one. The second thing there is, though, it is directed, as you say, at the Israeli government, or more specifically, the IDF. But when I spoke to Jillian Segal, she said, well, that does have anti-Semitic undertones because it questions Israel's right to exist. That's where it gets kind of difficult, doesn't it? Because if you're criticising actions of the IDF and that is seen as questioning, or the context is seen, the extrapolation is questioning Israel's right to exist, we get into a really difficult area, don't we?
Well, Laura, I think the idea of calling for the death of anyone in this country is extraordinary. And it's extraordinary that anyone would be able to get away with calling for the death of anyone.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Julian. I agree with you, absolutely. But if we're talking about a definition here and people can be deported on that, I think it's important that we sort that out. There's morality and ethical issues here, and then there is actually a definition in law that can have real consequences. And this goes to a lot of the criticism of the IDF. Well, for example, yesterday, 6 children were killed among 10, and that was a misfire of an Israeli strike, and there's been criticism of Israel for that. I mean, can that be seen as anti-Semitic?
No, not at all. I mean, it's a legitimate criticism of the actions of the IDF. Similarly, it's not anti-Semitic to say the IDF should get out of Gaza. That's completely legitimate debate.
Yeah.
But
why is death to the IDF,
for the deaths of an organisation of people serving. Can I just finish? Can I finish this point?
Yeah, but
calling
for
the deaths of people in an organisation which has conscripts.
Yeah. But isn't it? Is it based on individuals though? Doesn't it depend? Look, I agree with you that it's not it's awful. But death to the IDF could be seen as death of an entity, not an individual, couldn't it?
Well, the entity is comprised of individuals. It would be like saying death to the ADF. We wouldn't want that either. The ADF is comprised of Australians. The IDF is different to the ADF in that the IDF is comprised of conscripts. We're talking about 18, 19-year-old kids in the main that comprise this, who represent the breadth of Israel, including Jews and Arab Israelis and Druze and others. The question here is not the definition. The question here is what is the government's commitment to this report? Because the report provides a terrific work plan for the special envoy, but the special envoy can't fight anti-Semitism alone. If she's going to get change in relation to the migration department, in relation to the cultural industries, in relation to the universities, she has to have the commitment of the government, and they haven't given that commitment yet.
I wanted to just bring your attention to some tweets that Bob Carr has tweeted in the last hour or so. He said this: Jillian Segal finds repellent the racism she addresses in her report on anti-Semitism. What about the racism her husband funds through Advance Australia? Racism directed at marginalised, powerless Muslims, First Nations people, migrants. She was an appalling choice and utterly foolish to take the job, given she plainly knew the activities of this racist outfit and that her partner was a chief backer. The disclaimer here is that Jillian Segal says she knew nothing of her husband's donations and she has denied it. But what do you think of those circumstances, Julian?
I mean, what a set of dirty misogynistic comments from Bob Carr, a person who should know so much better. I thought we were well and truly past the days where we were holding wives responsible for the actions of their husbands. Now, the people who've been raising this smear campaign against a distinguished Australian are doing so because they want the anti-Semitism in this country to continue. They want to see Jewish artists and creatives continue to be deplatformed and doxed. They want to see Jewish students on campuses and Jewish academics have things like urine in their offices and be spat out as they walk around campus. They want to see Jewish children fearful of wearing their school uniform in public. That's the situation in this country today. We have been one of the great multicultural countries in the world, and yet multiculturalism only works if everybody can enjoy the full benefits of that multiculturalism, and that is that everyone who is law-abiding can enjoy the full benefits of the law. Bob Carr should know much better than to peddle that rubbish.
Julian, just one final question on the anti-Semitism report, the definition of it as well. Now 2 years, almost 2 years on from the October 7 attacks, and that's still, you know, it's had a chilling effect on our nation as well as Israel. I think a lot of Australians have grown uncomfortable with what they see as proportionality in Gaza. I think it's difficult. Journalists can't get into Gaza and report firsthand, so we're in this situation where we can't rely on Hamas, but you also can't rely on Israel's account of things, because both of them don't have a complete visibility. Hamas are flat out liars and propagandists from time to time. But how does this sit with you in terms of criticism of an entity, of Israel, and, you know, free speech, which is part of the Liberals', you know, very belief faculties?
Well, Laura, freedom of speech is fundamental in a democracy, but we've never been a democracy with completely unrestrained speech. We have things like defamation and contempt laws. You can't shout fire in a crowded theatre, and all of those principles are well understood. Look, in relation to what's happening in Gaza, I've been very clear. I don't want to see anyone suffer. I want to see the aid get through. I want to see the conflict brought to an end. But that's only going to happen when Hamas releases the hostages. I mean, they have held hostages there for the better part of 2 years now. Some of those people are dead. Some of those people have been held in the most appalling conditions. Those hostages need to be released, and Hamas should play no further role in Gaza. If that happens, then we can have the peace in the region that so many people desire on all sides.
Jillian, thank you for joining the program today. It's a sometimes uncomfortable conversation to have, but I think it's really necessary. So I really appreciate your time and talking us through it, quite eloquently. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Laura.